I forgot my card again." My daughter Sarah laughed softly as she pushed a silver tray across the glass counter. On it lay a stack of designer items and a printed receipt totaling over $2,000. Next to her stood Brenda, her mother-in-law, who was already admiring a silk scarf she had casually tossed onto the pile. Brenda offered me a sweet, expectant smile, treating me less like family and more like a personal ATM. The clerk behind the counter finished wrapping a leather handbag and looked between the three of us, waiting for someone to produce a form of payment. Sarah dug around in her expensive tote bag, putting on a perfectly practiced show of surprise. She let out a small gasp, exactly on cue. Then she slid the tray just an inch closer to me. Brenda shook her head with feigned sympathy. "Oh my, I left my purse in David's car." "We are just so forgetful today, aren't we?" Both women stared at me. For the past year, Sarah had been scheduling these family bonding days, and mysteriously, her wallet always vanished right at the checkout counter. I had usually paid to keep the peace to ensure my daughter stayed close. But today, staring at the digital display showing a massive sum for perfumes, shoes, and bags I hadn't chosen, the dynamic shattered. I looked at the fine leather goods, then at Sarah's confident smile, waiting for my premium credit card to appear. "How funny, I forgot mine too," I replied in a pleasant, even tone. Her smile froze instantly. The color drained from Sarah's face. The clerk raised an eyebrow, clearly sensing the shift in the room. "What do you mean, Mom?" Sarah whispered, her sweet tone dissolving into panic. "You always bring your card." "Not today," I answered smoothly, adjusting my coat. I turned my attention to her mother-in-law. "Since your purse is just in the car, Brenda, you can easily go fetch it. I have a neighborhood association meeting in an hour, so I really must be going. Enjoy your shopping." I turned on my heel and walked out the glass doors without waiting for a reply. The afternoon air felt surprisingly crisp. I knew a storm was coming, but for the first time, I was the one controlling the weather. By the time I pulled my sedan into my driveway, my phone was vibrating relentlessly against the passenger seat. There were 12 missed calls from Sarah and 5 text messages from her husband, David. I didn't open a single one. Instead, I unlocked my front door, stepped into the quiet hallway of the home I owned free and clear, and brewed a strong pot of black coffee. As the aroma filled the kitchen, I took a slow walk through my house. Without the noise of my daughter's constant demands, I started noticing things I had previously chosen to ignore. A $100 scented candle Sarah had bought for the house sat on my entryway table. An oversized, gaudy throw pillow she had brought over to brighten up my living room clashed with my sofa. I walked down the hall to the guest bedroom. Opening the closet, I found 3 rows of Sarah's seasonal coats, David's golf clubs, and several bins of Brenda's old holiday decorations. The bathroom counter was cluttered with Sarah's premium skin creams and spare curling irons. They were small territorial markers slowly claiming the space I had worked decades to maintain. I didn't feel a rush of anger. Instead, a wave of absolute clarity washed over me. I had allowed a slow, subtle invasion under the guise of family closeness. I walked out to the garage, broke down 4 large cardboard boxes, and brought them inside. I methodically packed up every single item that belonged to my daughter, her husband, and her mother-in-law. I folded the coats neatly. I wrapped the skin creams carefully. I wasn't being malicious. I was simply clearing my space. I stacked the sealed boxes neatly by the front door. The physical purge felt incredibly liberating. But as I looked at the boxes, I knew the physical clutter was only a symptom of a much larger financial disease I needed to cure. The next morning, I sat at my dining table with a fresh cup of coffee, my tablet, and a notepad. It was time to look at the numbers. I opened my banking app and reviewed my expenses for the past 8 months. Beyond the forced shopping trips, I noticed steady, recurring leaks. 2 years ago, I had given Sarah a secondary credit card attached to my account strictly for emergencies. I clicked on the transaction history for her card. There were no emergencies. Instead, I saw a monthly charge for a premium meal kit delivery service sent to her address. There were regular payments to an exclusive wine club Brenda favored. There were charges for high-end gym memberships. It took exactly 3 clicks on the screen to permanently cancel the secondary card. But I didn't stop there. I logged into my auto insurance portal. Sarah and David's 2 vehicles were still bundled under my family policy, a temporary favor from when David was between jobs 3 years ago. I dialed my insurance broker. I need to remove 2 vehicles and 2 drivers from my policy, I instructed clearly. Starting the 1st of next month, the policy should only cover my car. It was a 5-minute phone call. Sarah and David would receive an automated email letting them know they had 30 days to secure their own coverage. Finally, I logged into my cellular provider and separated their phone lines from my family plan, opting to send the billing responsibility directly to David's email. I wasn't doing this to punish them. I was simply handing them back the responsibilities that belong to 2 capable adults in their 30s. Passive dependency breeds disrespect, and I had funded my own disrespect for far too long. I closed my tablet just as a car door slammed aggressively in my driveway. The real confrontation had arrived. The doorbell didn't ring. Instead, a heavy fist pounded against the wood. I opened the door to find Sarah standing on the porch, her face flushed with indignation. David stood a step behind her, looking down at his sneakers, clearly uncomfortable. Sarah marched past me into the hallway before I could even offer a greeting. "How could you do that to me?" she demanded, dropping her designer bag onto the entryway bench. "My card was declined this morning at the country club I was buying breakfast for Brenda and her friends." The waitress looked at me like I was a criminal. "It wasn't your card, Sarah." "It was mine," I replied, closing the door calmly. I gestured to the stack of cardboard boxes resting near the coat rack. "And while you're here, please take your belongings. I prefer to keep the guest room clear." Sarah stared at the boxes, her mouth falling open. "Are you kicking my stuff out?" "All this because of yesterday. Mom, I didn't have my wallet. It was an honest mistake. You completely humiliated Brenda and me in front of that cashier. If you had the budget to shop at a luxury boutique, you weren't helpless," I said, crossing my arms. "The problem isn't the boutique, Sarah. The problem is that you treat me as a financial sponsor rather than a mother." David finally cleared his throat, stepping forward. "Margaret, we got an email about the auto insurance. And the phone bill. What's going on?" "There's no mistake." "David," I answered, keeping my voice level. "You are both working adults. It is time you manage your own household expenses." Sarah's eyes darted around the room. Her anger suddenly vanished, replaced by a calculated, deeply concerning look of pity that made my stomach turn. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick leather folder. She hadn't just come to argue, she had come prepared with a plan of her own. Sarah placed the leather folder on my dining table and opened it flat. Her face morphed into a mask of pre-packaged concern. "You're making rash decisions, Mom," she said, her voice dropping to a patronizing whisper. "David and I have been talking. With inflation and this house being so large, it's really not practical or safe for you to live here all by yourself anymore." David nodded weakly, avoiding my eyes. "We want to help you, Margaret. We were thinking we could move in here. We could rent out our townhouse to pay down our debts, and we'd be right here to keep an eye on you." I looked down at the open folder. Inside was a printed floor plan of my house. The large master bedroom where I had slept for 30 years had a neat little label stuck to it. Sarah and David. My name was written on the tiny sewing room at the back of the house, right next to the laundry machines. "A care plan," I asked, flipping to the next page, which detailed how my retirement pension would cover the shared utility bills and groceries. It's a win-win, Sarah insisted, regaining her confidence. You don't have to worry about maintaining the property, and we take care of you. Plus, Brenda can come visit without feeling crowded. Eventually, we'll need the space for kids anyway. They hadn't just planned to use my money. They had meticulously planned to hijack my home under the guise of elder care. I closed the folder sharply. I am 65. Sarah, not 90. My health is perfect. I don't need caretakers, and I certainly will not hand over my master bedroom to solve your debt problems. Sarah's posture stiffened. If you're going to be this stubborn, you're going to end up very lonely, Mom. Don't expect us to come around if you treat us like roommates. I manage my home perfectly well, I said, handing the folder back to her. The door is right behind you. Sarah spun on her heels and marched out, dragging David by the arm. He managed a quiet apology before the front door clicked shut behind them. I watched through the window as they shoved the cardboard boxes into the trunk of their car and sped away. But as the driveway emptied, a cold realization hit me. Sarah still had a shiny brass key to my front door on her keychain. Given how she operated, it wouldn't take long for her to convince David to pack a moving truck and simply show up while I was out running errands, forcing a move-in that would be impossible to undo without causing a massive scene. I didn't waste time worrying. I picked up my phone and searched for a local security technician. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, a white van was parked in my driveway. Instead of just changing the brass cylinders, I had the technician remove the old locks entirely. He installed heavy-duty smart locks on both the front door and the garage entry. There were no keyholes anymore. The doors now only opened via my fingerprint or a specific code generated on my phone. While the technician was drilling, I sat at my computer and accessed the Postal Service website. I rerouted all my sensitive mail bank statements, insurance papers, and tax documents to a private P.O. box across town. Sarah had a habit of flipping through the mail on my counter when she visited. That access was now officially revoked. That evening, I sent a brief factual text message to David. Updated the home security system and locks today. If you need to stop by, please text me in advance so I can open the door for you. He replied 10 minutes later with a simple, "Understood." The physical boundaries were set. Now it was only a matter of time before they tested them. The test came 3 days later. I was in the backyard pruning my rose bushes when my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was an alert from the new smart doorbell camera. I pulled off my gardening glove and tapped the screen to view the live feed. Sarah was standing on my front porch, struggling to balance a massive plastic storage bin filled with heavy winter coats. Brenda was standing right behind her, holding 2 smaller boxes. I watched through the screen as Sarah confidently pressed her old metal key against the black digital panel of the new lock, confused to find a smooth glass surface instead of a keyhole. She tapped the glass. She pushed the handle. Nothing budged. Visibly irritated, she slammed the heel of her hand against the heavy wooden door. I walked leisurely through the house, leaving the heavy deadbolt engaged, and activated the 2-way speaker on my phone. "Hello, Sarah. Can I help you?" My voice chimed through the doorbell speaker. Sarah jumped, nearly dropping the heavy bin. She glared into the camera lens. "Mom, what is this thing?" "Open the door. Brenda and I are bringing some winter clothes to store in your attic. Our closets are completely full. I texted David days ago about the new locks," I replied smoothly. "And I'm sorry, but my attic is no longer a storage unit for your household. I am organizing my own things." "You've got to be kidding me," Sarah yelled at the camera. Brenda shook her head in the background, muttering about how rude I was being. "You're locking your own daughter out over some clothes. I am an adult managing my own property. Sarah, just as I expect you to manage yours. You have your own townhouse. Have a safe drive back." I ended the transmission and turned off the microphone. Through the window, I watched Sarah kick the welcome mat before angrily dragging the storage bin back to Brenda's car. The barrier had held perfectly. By Saturday morning, I was ready for some normalcy. I took my usual walk to the neighborhood farmer's market to buy fresh tomatoes and my favorite artisan cheese. The weather was bright, but my peace was interrupted the moment I approached the dairy stall. Brenda was standing there flanked by two women I recognized from her country club. She wasn't looking at the cheese. She was actively scanning the crowd, waiting for me. She had brought an audience on purpose. Margaret Brenda called out her voice entirely too loud for the morning crowd. She stepped squarely into my path. Sarah is absolutely devastated. She never imagined her own mother would lock her out in the cold over a simple misunderstanding about money. Her friends pretended to inspect a jar of honey, but their posture was rigid. They were waiting to see me shrink in embarrassment or get defensive under the weight of public shame. I didn't give them the satisfaction. I handed the vendor my cash, placed my cheese in my canvas tote, and turned to Brenda with a pleasant, unwavering expression. "I haven't locked my daughter out. Brenda," I said, keeping my voice at a normal conversational volume. "I simply stopped financing the lifestyle of two fully grown adults. I'm sure you as a mother understand the importance of financial independence. After all, it was you who showed us at the luxury boutique how to go on a shopping spree without bringing a wallet." The two friends snapped their heads up, exchanging a shocked look. Brenda's face lost its smug superiority and flushed a deep, mottled red. That was a genuine mistake," she stammered, scrambling to regain control of the narrative. "But you canceled their insurance. You're punishing them. Cutting off a subsidy isn't a punishment, Brenda. It's a return to reality." I adjusted my tote bag. "If you're so deeply concerned about their finances, you are entirely free to move them into your house and hand them your credit cards. Have a beautiful morning, ladies." I walked away at a leisurely pace, leaving Brenda stammering without an argument. When I turned onto my street, I saw David's car parked in my driveway. He was sitting on the porch steps, alone. I unlocked the door with my thumbprint and gestured for him to come inside. He looked genuinely exhausted. The dark circles under his eyes spoke volumes, and his shirt was rumpled. He sat heavily on a kitchen stool while I poured him a glass of iced water. "Sarah called me furious about what happened at the market." "With her mother," David said quietly, rubbing his temples. "Margaret, this is spiraling out of control. We had to cancel the gym, the subscriptions, and return half the things we bought last month. My paycheck doesn't cover everything. I just need a small temporary loan to level us out until next month." I sat across from him at the kitchen island. "Nothing is out of control, David. You are just experiencing the actual cost of your lifestyle." "But we weren't ready for all these bills at once," he pleaded, searching for the motherly pity he was used to exploiting. I stood up, walked to my desk drawer, and pulled out a small navy blue notebook. It was a basic financial planner. I walked back and slid it across the granite counter until it bumped against his water glass. "You make a good salary, David. Your problem isn't a lack of income. It's terrible management," I told him firmly. "I will not give you a loan because that just funds the illusion. But if you want to learn how to organize your money, I can teach you." He stared at the blue notebook. He had come expecting a check to end his immediate discomfort. "You are welcome to come here for a visit anytime," I added softly but firmly. "But my bank accounts and my home's square footage are permanently off the table. It's up to you what you do next." David picked up the notebook in silence, gave a tight nod, and walked out the door. 4 months have passed since that day. Sarah and David didn't move in with Brenda, mostly because Brenda refused to let them crowd her space once she realized my money wasn't coming with them. Instead, they were forced to downsize. They sold Sarah's expensive SUV, bought a reliable used sedan, and started living within their actual means. I know Sarah occasionally posts vague complaints on social media about unsupportive family members, but my peace of mind no longer depends on the opinions of people who only valued me as an open wallet. David comes over every other Thursday. He brings regular grocery store coffee and we sit on the porch. He showed me the blue notebook last week. It was full of messy calculations and crossed out numbers, but he looked prouder than I had seen him in years. He's finally steering his own ship. He doesn't ask for cash, and I don't offer it. As for me, my home is exactly the sanctuary it was meant to be. There are no surprise guests, no passive-aggressive home makeovers, and no secret blueprints plotting to move me into the laundry room. I spend my mornings gardening and my evenings reading in total silence. I learned that setting boundaries doesn't require massive arguments or complicated legal battles. It just requires decisive action. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your children is to step aside and let them feel the true weight of their own choices. I secured my doors, protected my resources, and took back my life. We cannot force others to grow up, but we always hold the keys to our own front door. And choosing exactly who gets to cross that threshold is the greatest freedom of all.